2023 was supposed to be about Anthony Richardson and his development, giving him an opportunity to justify the Colts taking him fourth overall. And it kind of didn't really go to plan because of the injuries. But the Colts still had, I guess you would say, a solid season, made the best out of a less than ideal situation. So looking ahead to 2024, this was supposed to be more exciting for Colts fans, the Colts organization. Anthony Richardson's going to be back from injury. You'll have him in the fold. You know, in all intents and purposes, still really his rookie season, right, from an on-field experience perspective. So there's going to be time to find out what you got him, to find out if he could be the dude, to find out if he's going to be the one to be able to take this organization, put it on his back and say, follow me, I'll take you to the promised land. And I guess you could say that this was a bit of an exciting season for the Colts. Just might not have been the way that this team ultimately planned. For a team that needs a franchise quarterback, the number one ability that you want that young quarterback to have, above all else, right? The most important one is availability. Arm strength, size, accuracy, all these other things, wonderful, important. But they got to be able to strap up every Sunday and play. Like, period. It doesn't matter. You have all the tools in the world. If you can't stay on the field, none of that other bullshit matters. Do you get what I'm saying here? Like, really not up for debate, right? The most important ability is availability. And now, as you've gotten through Anthony Richardson's second season with Indianapolis, beyond the other questions, you got some concerns here because he only played 11 games. And that includes a couple of games missed due to an oblique injury. But that's not all, right? Like, what was a really bad look here was during the Texans game, he takes himself out for a play because he's winded. And I'm sorry. You're the quarterback. I know your play style, everything else. You just can't do that. If you're hurt, injured, different conversation. But because you're gassed, because you're winded, because you're tired, that is unacceptable. You just can't do it. You just can't. Now, it begs the question, like, how do you handle that as an organization? And the Colts, to me, handled it in a very piss-poor manner. Because right after that game, head coach Shane Steichen comes out and basically says that Anthony Richardson is going on the bench for the foreseeable future, and Joe Flacco is going to be our guy. Okay. Young guy made a dumb dick decision, made a bad mistake, but that was enough to put him on the bench? Yeah, like, again, this season is supposed to be about finding out what you have in Anthony Richardson or not. And when he's actually healthy, you're going to proactively choose to put him on the bench when him being available has been a big problem? That shit doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Like, fine him, do something else, but to sit there and bench him like this was dumb. So they benched him for 2 weeks, and of course the Colts lost the next two games, and Joe Flacco wasn't very good in those starts. And you're sitting there saying to yourself, well, fuck, Anthony Richardson could have done that, right? What's the whole point? And then they bring Anthony Richardson in. And he misses a couple more games, and all of a sudden you turn around and you look, he's played 11 games. He has a completion percentage under 48%. That is dog shit. Like, you talk about the arm strength and some of the spectacular throws that he makes, and Anthony Richardson certainly has that. Like, the AR-15 nickname would be appropriate there, right? But he's completing less than half of his passes. 8 touchdown passes to 12 interceptions. That means he's averaging less than a touchdown pass a game. And let's be really clear here, so there is no confusion. That's dog shit. Less than a touchdown a game. Less than 50% in terms of completions. What the fuck are we even talking about here? Frankly, I'm surprised you're not hearing more about the Colts needing to go find a quarterback this offseason, because so far, disappointingly, Anthony Richardson is quickly heading down the track of he's not the fucking guy, which is one of these things, right? When you talk about him coming out of Florida, it was, man, there's plenty of flaws here, but the upside is so incredibly tantalizing that it is a big swing. And you're either going to hit a home run or you're going to strike out in ugly fashion. And so far through 2 years, it feels like the Colts are landing more on the strikeout in grand fashion than home run side of the fence, if you get my drift here. And it's going to be incumbent upon Anthony Richardson to decide, like, does he want to be a professional quarterback? And does he want to be a really good one? Because I would question, without knowing the man or anything else, like, clearly something's up to where he's not working hard, he's not studying something. Because to complete less than half of your passes, that is absolutely abysmal in the modern NFL. Unbelievable, man. And then he's got to figure out, frankly, to have just, I think, a little bit more dog in him and be able to tough it out. That's just my opinion. And what's unfortunate here for the Colts, this AFC South was gettable. Instead, they go 8-9 and miss the playoffs. Even with all the drama around Anthony Richardson and the, frankly, piss-poor quarterback play the Colts got pretty much all season long, they still went 8-9. You had Jonathan Taylor go back to his dominant self in 2024. He had 3 wide receivers over 1,000 yards, but not, or over 800 yards, but none of them eclipsed 1,000. But he had good balance in terms of the receivers in the passing game. Another big problem, though, beyond Anthony Richardson in the quarterback situation, although that was a big, big problem, right, was their defense stunk. They finished 29th in yards allowed, 24th in total points allowed. And, you know, as much as I've just roasted on Anthony Richardson a little bit, who was a guy, admittedly, that I was very high on going into the 2023 draft, like, he deserves it. Like, next year, there are no more excuses. You either put up or you fucking get the hell out of Dodge, right? I have to ask this question, and this is the most important thing. Like, why in the hell is Chris Ballard still the general manager of the Indianapolis Colts? He brought Bears football to Indy, and Jim Irsay is just going to let him keep his job? He's been there 8 years. He has a losing record. He is 62-69 in the regular season. 62-69. In that 8-year stretch, he has 2 fucking playoff appearances and 1 measly ass playoff win, which, by the way, was back in 2018, which, happened to be Andrew Luck's last season. Like, Andrew Luck ain't walking through that fucking door anymore. You've had 6 years, and you've made the playoffs once in that time and haven't won a playoff game. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Beyond question, now that somebody like Trent Baalke has been fired by the Jags, beyond question, Chris Ballard puts himself, in my opinion, at the top of the worst general managers in the NFL conversation. Now, certainly I'll throw Ryan Poles in there until the performance proves otherwise. He does belong. But Chris Ballard, in terms of longevity and consistency of suck, is at the top of that fucking list. And to sit there and bring him back for what? What has he shown you to indicate that he knows what the fuck he's doing? What? I asked the Colts, like, what are you doing? Again, it's easy to crap on Anthony Richardson or even head coach Shane Steichen. But at the end of the day, this is a failure at the very top of the organization, and that starts with Jim Irsay, but then it really manifests in Chris Ballard. I can't believe he's being given a 9th season. He doesn't deserve it, period. And now the Colts enter into the offseason with about $35 million or so in cap space, a couple of key free agents, Ryan Kelly and Will Freese off that offensive line, Julian Blackmon from their secondary. You know, they may retain 2 of those guys. They may retain all 3 of them. We don't really know, but it doesn't really matter. I don't know. They've got some needs certainly in this offseason, hence the picking 14th in round 1 and 8-9 record. I think defensive tackle is a really big need for them. They need somebody opposite DeForest Buckner, next to DeForest Buckner. They need a disruptor up the middle. They really, really do. And then I look at that linebacking core. Who do they have in that linebacking core that makes plays or could be thought of as a difference maker? Exactly. And then I also look at that secondary, specifically at corner. Do you feel really good about the corners that are there? I don't. I don't know why anybody would. And when you look at the way this defense performed in 2024, why in the hell would you feel good about anything, right? All 3 levels of that defense needs upgrading and perhaps significant upgrading. It's true. It's absolutely true. But then I could come back and say, hey, depending upon free agency, if you lose a Ryan Kelly and or Will Freeze, all of a sudden the offensive line becomes a significant issue and a big time need and perhaps supersedes all of those, which is true because at the end of the day, you have to build around your quarterback. And in particular with Anthony Richardson in his play style, you need an offensive line that can protect him to minimize the amount of hits that he's going to take because he's already going to run like an idiot sometimes and take big hits when he should not. So we'll see. Like, the offseason needs can change quite a bit here depending upon what happens with particularly Ryan Kelly and Will Freeze. But then I could say tight end is a pretty big need here. I don't know if it's the top need, but depending upon where you're looking at it, the Colts at 14, you've got a couple of tight ends that you might be able to make an argument. You could justify them taking one in round one. That might be the way to go. It just might be. And then there's also a thought here, whether it's in the draft or whether it's in free agency, needing to go get a better backup quarterback and preparing yourself for the inevitability that, or the possibility, I should say, that Anthony Richardson's not the guy. You're really going to run Joe Flacco back out there again as your backup quarterback? I'm just saying. Yeah, like I said, the Colts are in Bears football land! Right in the middle of the pack. Major questions about their quarterback. And retaining a general manager and front office that absolutely does not deserve it. Tell me where you've heard that before. And how ironic. Where did Chris Ballard spend years as a scout? Bears. Of course he did.